For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Joanna, and I'm the Director of Education and Outreach for the Nevada Housing Coalition. Very excited for the panel today on our monthly Lunch and Learn on water use and affordable housing. Before we get started, I would like to invite my Executive Director, Maurice Page, to come in because we have a really exciting coalition announcement for everybody before we jump into the topic this month. I'll let you go ahead, Maurice.
All right. Thank you, Joanna. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be here and make this next announcement. I am pleased to share an important update regarding our organization's direction. We have updated our mission statement and have introduced a vision statement to reflect our commitment to attaining affordable housing in Nevada. Our new mission statement will read as to promote development and preservation of affordable housing for all Nevadans through collaboration, education, and advocacy. This revision underscores our dedication to a comprehensive approach to encompassing all types of housing and demographic groups. Furthermore, we are proud to introduce our vision statement, which will read as a Nevada where all residents have access to an affordable place to call home. This vision guides our efforts towards creating an inclusive communities where every Nevadan can thrive. We have recognized the evolving needs in our state, and our board of directors has recalibrated our focus towards fostering innovative and effective strategies. Our commitment is to remain creative, flexible, and entrepreneurial at adapting to change and challenges to achieve our mission. We all know that housing is fundamental to personal and community well-being. Stable and affordable housing forms the cornerstone of thriving societies. In collaboration with industry leaders, educational bodies, community organizations, we will aim to build an ecosystem that not only supports housing development, but also empowers Nevadans to engage in sustainable living practices. Together, we will continue to strive for excellence in our efforts to ensure that every Nevadan has the opportunity to live in an affordable and sustainable home. So I appreciate and thank you all for your continued support and dedication to this cause. And Joanna, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Maurice. Very exciting news. I'm glad you guys are all here today to hear it first. So the first we're mentioning it to everyone. So you guys are getting that very first look DIP at what's going on and how we're moving forward and evolving as a coalition as we grow and change. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm very excited to announce our moderator today, Rick Van Diepen, from Green Vision Principal. Recently, he was described to me as the sustainability guy in a conversation I was having, and he's also on the board of the AIA, American Institute for Architects Nevada chapter. So I really was excited to invite him to moderate this panel today and talk about water use and affordable housing development. And I'll just let him go ahead and get started and introduce the topic more and the speakers.
Well, thanks very much, Joanna, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And just full disclosure, I'm a committee member now. I recently stepped down as treasurer for AIA, so I'm still very active and a big supporter of the organization. But thank you for having me. I appreciate Maurice, yourself, and Amanda for inviting me to moderate today, and I'm really excited to introduce these speakers and then get some good question and answers going from from all the participants. And I see we have 45 people, so that's a pretty awesome audience, and I appreciate everybody making time today and kind of joining our lunch and learn here and taking time out of your day to learn about this really important topic, which is the connection between affordable housing and water conservation. We live in an environment with limited resources, and for many years, I'm proud to say that our community and our utilities have done a fantastic job at building a resilient water supply system and treatment system that's recognized the world over as a leader. We recycle, I think, over 94% of our water. So I think we're really a great example, and you'll hear more of that from my friend Zane in a moment. However, I wanted to really just kind of point out that as a community, and I'm also really excited for your announcement as well about your sort of honing in on the vision of Nevada Housing Coalition, because I heard environmental justice in there, I heard equality, I heard inclusivity, and I heard sustainability, and all of that ties into what we're really talking about today, which is creating an equitable environment where everybody can thrive and everybody can have a healthy environment that's also pro-business and pro-growth, but doing it in a sustainable way. So that's the kind of huge picture that we're going to address today with this panel, and I'm really excited that everybody's here. Real briefly, if for those of you who don't know me, I'm a principal at Green Vision. We're a community-based architecture and sustainable design consulting firm that I started. We're going on our 10th year anniversary this summer. And our practice focuses on homeless navigation centers, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing in kind of what the Western states here. And I've been a past president of the U.S. Green Building Council, and I was a founding member of the Committee on the Environment with the American Institute of Architects. So I've been a big mouth and a big advocate for affordable housing and also for equitable treatment of our homeless citizens, and doing that, creating a more sustainable community for a lot of years. So that's my story, and I'd like to hand it over to Zane Marshall here. A real quick introduction to save you some time, Zane, so you can get to the meat and potatoes. Zane Marshall is the Director of Water Resources at the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Zane leads 7 divisions that include water, land, and environmental resource management, environmental restoration and compliance, as well as regional water conservation, climate change, and their sustainability initiatives. And I'm sure 10 other things. So I'll let Zane take it from here. Thank you, Zane.
Great, thank you, Rick, and thank you, Joanna, for the invitation to speak today. I'm really happy to be here with you all. Let me just share my screen here. Make sure everybody can see that. Are you good with that, Joanna?
Looks great.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to give a quick overview of the state of water and water resources and our conservation initiatives here in Southern Nevada. So real quick, SNWA is a not-for-profit government agency that essentially functions as a water wholesaler. And one of the main things that we do is build and operate regional water infrastructure. And this graphic here shows the 2 treatment plants that we operate. We have 3 intakes into Lake Mead, and then distribution lines throughout the valley that deliver water to the purveyor members, the cities of North Las Vegas, Henderson, and the unincorporated portions of Clark County. We've built infrastructure in Lake Mead just recently, completed in 2020, to ensure access to Lake Mead at all operational levels, so we can pull our allocation from the Colorado River even below dead pull, or if Lake Mead hits dead pull due to drought conditions. One of the other things that SNWA does is water resource portfolio management and long-range planning. We build a 50-year water resource plan, and we update that every year. And we take that to our board of directors for their input. And one of the things that we've been challenged with over the past 23 years or so is long-term drought on the Colorado River. This graphic here just shows the river system here at Lake Mead when it was at its fullest in 1983, and then how things have changed to 2003 and 2023. So this drought can be shown here by the inflows that have come into the river. So these are inflows at Lee's Ferry, which is a point between Lakes Powell and Lake Mead. Red is bad, blue is good, and we see mostly bad in this graphic since 2000. The river is essentially producing less water, providing less water than what the total demands are, a deficit of about 3 million acre feet today. And the climate scientists expect this to get worse over time due to regional aridification, and primarily driven by increasing temperatures from climate change. So this is 90%, the Colorado River is 90% of our local supply. This is the hand that we've been dealt essentially in terms of what we need to manage through to ensure that our community has a reliable long-term supply of water to meet our needs. This graphic here just shows how lake mead elevations have changed since 1981. And the three lines, the yellow, orange, and red lines, show shortage levels or shortage triggers at those various elevations where Nevada takes less of their allocation if the lake hits each of those triggers. So at the lower level there, the red line, we would take a 10% reduction or 30,000 acre feet reduction from our 300,000 acre foot allocation on the river. And so our goal is to ensure that our demands are something less than that 270,000 acre feet to ensure that we have resilience against future conditions and the impacts of climate change on the river. And the way that we've managed this and continue to is with the infrastructure development that I mentioned earlier, long-range water resource planning, and building a portfolio of variable resources that we can meet our community's needs with over time. We've banked over 11 years of demands in groundwater banks here in the Las Vegas Valley, in Lake Mead, the state of Arizona, and the state of California. And then conservation has also been a major tool for us to work to manage demands in the community so that we can meet long-term needs over time. It's important to understand that in the Las Vegas Valley, 40% of the water that we bring into the valley is used indoors, and that water is treated with wastewater treatment plants and returned back to the Colorado River, and we essentially recycle that water, 99% of that water. 60% of the water we bring into the valley is used consumptively, so it's used in outdoor irrigation, in septic, it goes to septic systems, or it's used in evaporative cooling. And that is why the focus of our conservation initiatives have been on those consumptive uses, to reduce those, and so that we have water that we can use indoors over time. So I mentioned that conservation is one of the major toolbox that we have to be able to meet our community's needs with limited supplies. And we began conservation initiatives really in the late 1990s, ramping up in 2003. And we had great success in our community until about 2015. And this graphic here shows how demands in the community started to climb from 2015 to 2020. And that caused us to rethink our conservation goal and the approaches that we were taking to drive conservation in the community and reduce overall demands. And so we set a new goal of 86 gallons per capita per day, which is what is in our resource plan today. And we put into effect new restrictions on how water can be used in the community, and initiatives to rebate change about how water is used outdoors. So some of these things included a moratorium on new golf courses, a new golf course budget to reduce their overall uses. We incentivize conversion of where turf is used, where there's functional turf, from cool season to warm season types. We have worked to resolve leaks, to manage our own assets in a more effective way in terms of ensuring that we reduce the leaks that we have in our distribution systems. We have put in place a septic conversion program. We have a limited pool size. We have restricted the use of evaporative cooling in new development. We've restricted the application of grass in new development, so no new grass, with the exception of schools, parks, and cemeteries. And we're also concerned about the potential for exacerbating heat island effect with the removal of grass in the community. And so we've added some tree incentives to our Water Smart Landscaping program, $100 per tree, up to 100% of cover. And we also have entered into an agreement with Impact NV to plant 1,000 trees in heat vulnerable areas in the community. So what this has resulted in is a pretty significant reduction in our consumptive demands. And you can see here 2021 to 2023. 2023 has the cloud over it because it was a little cooler and wetter than normal, but we still think we had significant gains in the reduction of demands in our community over these 3 years. And one of the questions we get is how can we support continued growth in the community with the limited water supply? And this graphic here shows that even with adding 60,000 new connections within our community, we still reduced our consumptive demands by 26%. So we can make big change. We can continue to diversify economically and grow if we use water in in a thoughtful way and reduce those outdoor consumptive uses. And overall, since 2002, our population has increased by 52%. Our per capita water use has declined by 58%, and our Colorado River consumption is reduced by 42%. And in 2002, we were actually using more than our allocation on the Colorado River. So we're in a much better place today and much more resilient today, even with the population increase that we've had. And one final slide here, I just wanted to compare the demands of different housing types so that you kind of had this in your quiver. So this compares single family residential, high rise and low rise developments. And you can see here that low rise is the most efficient. These are housing units that are built today. With the new policies, codes, service rules that we put in place in the last couple of years, we expect these lines to come much closer together in the future, where single family will be more efficient, and even high rise will become more efficient because of the limitation on evaporative cooling. And with that, I'll take questions or turn it over to Rick. Thank you.
So yeah, if anybody has any questions or
There's a question in the chat
Yeah.
about what the definition of low rise is.
So I think this is like 2 or 3 story like apartment buildings, so that do not require cooling towers, like they're mechanically cooled. And so I think that's one of the big differences between in that set of data is the cooling methods, right, between high rise versus low rise.
see, I'm not really monitoring the chat because I'm not very good at multitasking, Juana. So if
I'm
there are
on
any
it.
other, go for it.
There's no other questions.
Okay, all right, great.
Yeah.
And if for the attendees, if you think of anything, any questions you have for Zane as we get into more of the presentations and our Q&A, please feel free to chime in later and get it in the
We
chat.
have the-
And we'll,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
we'll make
Rick.
sure.
You can use the Q&A or the chat to ask questions.
Okay, great. All right, our next speaker is Eric Kelly. He is a registered, well, we're going to open up the discussion basically right now, or open kind of roundtable discussion. So I want to introduce the other 2 esteemed speakers that we have today, and thank you both for joining us again. First is Eric Kelly. He's a registered landscape architect in Nevada and Arizona, and he's the design director at Silverlands Inc. And Eric also happens to teach landscape architecture at UNLV with a focus on design for arid climates. Thank you for joining us, Eric. Our other speaker is Hassan Chaudhry. He's the founder and president of Foresight Housing Partners. They're a nonprofit 501c3 organization with a mission to invest in communities through housing development, public-private partnerships, and by empowering community development organizations to serve low-income populations. So thank you again for being here. And I'd like to just kind of start out with you, Hassan, if I could. From a developer's perspective, what are some of the considerations that you've had to learn to ensure that you're both complying with regulations, finance and building regulations to create comfortable living spaces for your tenants?
Like from a developer perspective, we have to look, like a product that we are developing and going to be owning for 30 to 50 years. So we have to really put utilities and the use of those utilities up on the front when we are designing these communities. And really also the second part is that if the owner is offering utility allowance or paying for utilities, we need to find creative solutions to put in our plans initially so the building becomes efficient, it's managed efficiently, and we can actually So that's where basically you can start from the design perspective, having a right team, a right consultant that understands whether resources are available, like setting up parameters for your water faucets, your water usage from a household standpoint, gives you an idea that what type of fixtures you can actually put in your property, but also how you can partner with utility providers to monitor the use of utility and guide your tenants how to preserve water and electricity. So those are the key things that I learned from my mentors and my leaders before starting Foresight, that how you should design a product, basically.
Got it. Great, thank you. And I know your properties are also really focused on overall improving quality of life and promoting interaction and mutual support with your tenants. So you have nice landscaping as well and pool facilities and so forth. So those are important to really focus on water savings as well, right? Because those are consumptive uses that Zane was talking about, right?
Yes, and I believe that my Lake Mead West Apartments that we finished last year is probably going to be the last big pool that the health
You
division
got in right
wants to
before
build.
the change, yeah.
Yeah, right before the change. We did go through some challenges, but we submitted right before the change, so we did still get the approval. But now, as we are operating, I can see that why it is more important to, think about not having that much of a bigger footprint of a pool in a community, because that's a lot of water that is getting utilized and recycled over time.
And that's you bring up one thing, and I saw one of the chat's comments from Carol was asking about how do you and you mentioned it a little bit, Hassan, talking about kind of a little bit of behavior modification and education that goes with with affordable housing developments, because some of them pay for the bills for their tenants, right? So there's kind of kind of a human. I have teenage girls, and they don't pay the bills, so there's a tendency to not really be concerned about how much water they're using. But can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I've not gone to the water yet, but I'm working on controlling from water heater standpoint first. So we are partnering with NV Energy and another consultant that came in to put in sensors around HVACs, the vents, the water heaters, and also now we are working towards getting to those faucets to really measure that what's the true usage is, and then over time guide those tenants, those residents, that how they could improve, right? So basically, if we see an activity that is actually showing that some tap in a unit, 2-bedroom unit, 2-bath, one of the bathrooms actually continues to have more consumption than the other, and we can actually assess that you only have one child and one adult living in one 2-bedroom, and then you have 2 adults living in the other. What's the consumption should look like? And that's why partnering with those utility companies, and plus utility companies having those incentives and programs for developers, like, it's very helpful.
Got it. Thanks a lot. And you mentioned working with consultants that are really kind of familiar with these technologies and these processes, and also the incentive programs that are there. Eric, can you kind of talk a little bit about how in this climate, transitioning to low water, we've been doing desert landscaping forever, right? So some of the old school landscape architects I've worked with, they're like, hey, we're already doing all that. There's you can't like squeeze any water out of this turnip, but can you kind of talk about some of the bigger picture things that maybe you're passing along to your students at UNLV about how we can really be more thoughtful about it, and not just hey, we got rid of the turf, so that we should be happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're getting asked all the time, how can we make a landscape in the desert that doesn't feel so arid and so stark, right? We're exploring more and more vegetation options all the time that make that make our communities feel enjoyable to live in, but yet don't use nearly as much water as they used to. You know, right now, I'd say one of our biggest focuses is turf conversions, right? Removing grass and replacing it with desert landscaping. But that doesn't necessarily have to mean no lawns. Lawns can be made of other vegetative ground covers that use very little water, but still function the same way a lawn does. You know, I would say, given that 60% of our water, it goes to irrigating the outdoors, it's very important that we have to be careful what we do with it, right? So, you know, there are 3 vegetative ground covers that we're exploring right now, using more and more of. Carapia is one, which is a hybridized low-growing ground cover that was it originates in Japan, actually. And then Dichondra, which has actually been used as a lawn since the 1970s, is making a huge comeback right now and uses about 60% of the water of a traditional lawn. And then the third option that I'm not quite so familiar with yet, but we're starting to see come up, is micro clover. So it looks like little miniature 4-leaf clovers, but acts as a lawn and ground covers. Yeah, Shauna, I'll type them into the chat here in just a minute for you. So, you know, we're working with developers and homeowners to replace lawns and add vegetation to the landscape that makes our environment feel great without using the water that all the grass used to. It's really nice to see that, you know, gone are the days of us trying to make Vegas look like California or Florida. We're actually embracing the desert, using native vegetation more and more than ever. You know, it's funny, I see more Joshua trees now than ever. Well, you know, it's great.
Well, that's great. Thanks a lot. And I know you work on a lot of multifamily projects as well, right?
I do.
Can you kind of talk about some of the unique kind of challenges or opportunities there? Because, you know, you have common spaces and, you know, and there's, you know, more and more kind of outdoor kind of amenities and everything that formerly it's like, oh, you have a grass area, like a, you know, play area or something. However, you know, there's just I think a bigger variety now. Can you kind of talk about some of those unique aspects?
Absolutely. You know, we get a lot of requests for artificial grass and play areas like that, but we're actually seeing a lot of issues come up from that as well, considering that I think artificial turf probably contributes more to urban heat islands than it detracts. It gets very hot. So, you know, we're trying to be innovative in the way that we design those spaces as well, using those vegetative ground cover alternatives, providing a lot more trees in orientations that make sense. Planting them where they'll provide, you know, shade in the summertime, but perhaps they're a deciduous tree, so they lose their leaves in the winter and allow sunlight in and warmth. I suppose, you know, outdoor living is probably becoming more in demand than ever, and so, you know, making spaces outdoors that people can enjoy is becoming a huge component of what we do. But I apologize. What was the initial question though regarding those amenity spaces?
Just kind of, I just wanted to because there's not a lot of, you know, turf removal in, you know, or that's already been done at you know, most of the multifamily kind of sites, you know, housing sites. So I was just kind of talking about the new kind of what's a little different from multifamily, you know, compared to like regular single family projects. On the design side.
Yeah.
And can you also talk a little bit about the kind of technologies as well? You know, I think, you know, sub-metering and there even subsurface irrigation. I'm starting to see more of that. But grouping planting, some of the things that relate more to the technologies that go just beyond the, you know, a timer and drip irrigation.
Right. Yeah, flow meters are being requested more and more so that we can actually monitor how many gallons per day or per hour are being used to irrigate landscapes. And also it helps with leak detection, right? So that when something's going on underground that we can't see, those pieces of equipment are telling us, oh, hey, you're using more water than usual. I'm seeing them even included in houses now. It's a little thing connected to your Wi-Fi. Yeah, so that if you're away on vacation or whatever, and you're, you know, you shouldn't be using any water, but this little device can tell, you know, hey, this is not usual. You should probably do something about it, or it'll even shut the water off entirely if it detects a serious leak. It's very cool. And these devices are, you know, Wi-Fi enabled, so they're connected to your phone. You get a notification on your phone if it's going. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Same thing applies for irrigation as well. You mentioned inline irrigation or subsurface irrigation. That is, that's been around for quite some time, but we're certainly seeing it in use more because the vegetative ground covers that we're using, like Carapia and Dichondra, in order to qualify for the SNWA rebates, have to be used in conjunction with drip irrigation. They cannot be irrigated with a traditional spray system. So you're absolutely right. We're seeing more and more of those very efficient pieces of equipment being used, even though the technology has actually been around for quite some time. But it's just, we're finally coming around to it. The paradigm in how we design and install landscape is changing for the better.
Got it. Great. Hey, Zane, can you kind of talk a little bit in a little more detail about your leak detection incentive program and kind of how that technology works? Because that's relatively new, right, for the kind of commercial and residential customers.
It is, and I think that's right now it's limited to the Las Vegas Valley Water District, but it is so the Water District just completed the installation of automatic metering infrastructure, AMI, which is a cellular connection from the meter to our network, and so we can see usage on a 15-minute increment every 24 hours a day for each customer, and we can aggregate that data and analyze it using machine learning to detect when customers have continuous flow or expected leaks, and then we can push out notifications to them to notify them. And we just stood up a rebate for a water smart plumber that can go out. We will give them a voucher if we detect that they may have a leak. We'll provide them a voucher for a plumber to go out. I think it's $200 to go out and help the customer identify, find the leak, and potentially fix it.
Oh, great. I appreciate that. Hey, Hassan, I think one of the reasons you and I have became quick friends is that you're like all in on sustainability, and you understand the connection between quality of life, you know, and how designing sustainably is a good long-term investment. However, it's a good short-term investment as well in terms of, you know, improving the quality of life, improving the built environment, air quality, you know, comfort, and you know, and just reduced bills, right? That directly translates to being able to keep rents low and affordable. But can you kind of just talk about kind of your Foresight's dedication that way, and kind of what you guys are thinking about in the future for future development projects?
Yeah, so I think it's for as you pointed out, first why you want to build, how you want to build, how you want to operate, and then how you want to guide your investment into that sustainability upfront. Because yes, of course, there's technology, we can utilize technology to monitor, but there's a cost that comes up with it for that monitoring and then managing that. And I've seen a difference between a market rate construction class B and then affordable construction class B, a huge difference. And that difference is, as you mentioned earlier, that why a developer is building that. So I believe that the capital structure and advising your partnership right from the beginning, that why it should be built in a certain way, and then where they should be investing, like investing in solar, investing in water preservation, investing in partnerships where you can actually monitor utility use, and then putting infrastructure is critical in those projects. I know that we have in Nevada, we have seen a lot of projects that were doing garden style developments, and now we are going into more corridor style or more high density. So and as you saw the chart in the high density, you still have a huge difference between 3 to 4 story to 5 and 7 story. The consumption, the leakage is more. So I think preventing that leakage right in your design is also very critical. right? How the building envelope is done, how the walls are structured, how like your pre-drywall inspections that you need to conduct to make sure that everything is sealed. And then when you do the drywall, when you do the paint and everything else, that you're still looking at the sealing process of a unit is also very critical, because there's a lot of leakage that happens from that side. So I think it's an overall design guideline that a developer or owner should develop, and then make changes to that document as you age or as you get experienced. And I think so, Rick, with you, that's what we really did initially, that we set up that, hey, this is how we want to build, this is what we want to own, this is, yes, of course, we want to build affordable, but if we want to own it, how we want to own it and operate it.
Right, got it. And I think it also shows leadership for developers to say, our standard is to be above code, meeting code minimum in terms of, water, electric, water and power use is what it takes to almost, to barely be legal. I mean, so that, if the excuse is always like, we have to reduce our first cost, or, then without looking at the overall lifetime cost of ownership, it's really short-sighted. So I think I applaud you for doing that, and I hope that your example and Nevada Hand and some of these other good organizations are kind of making that their standard. This is our spec for our projects, that we'll find ways to save money in other places, to keep the budget, but we're not going to sacrifice on these parts that are about sustainability and about quality of life for the
And then
tenants,
in the design in Lake Mead West, what we did was, on the third level, we have 10-foot ceilings.
Mm-hmm.
We have bigger and wider windows on all units, so that it brings in more ample light. It actually keeps your building a little bit cool. So I can set up my building, all those 3 floors, all those 4 corners of the building. We have HVAC set up at 80 degrees during summer, and we have tested that. We're going to test it this year as well. And then building is cooler when you're walking in the corridor. It is cooler, that because of the height.
Mm-hmm.
That you have in between, and so it's a lot. It's team effort. The entire team needs to feel that why they are building.
Got it. Yeah, and that's a great point. Taking an integrated approach, and early on in the design process is always the best way to get the highest performance building. Because if you get too far along, it's really hard to go backwards and kind of reverse engineer a project to get these technologies and these controls and sub meters and things like that in there. On the front end, it's a small investment, or that just makes a lot of sense. I'd like to take it back to you, Zane, to kind of talk a little bit about the kind of what's known as the water energy nexus. We're doing a fantastic job at recycling water, and my snarky teenage daughter, when she's running the sink too long, and drives my wife and I nuts. She says, "Well, we recycle all our water anyway, so what's the difference as long as it's going down the drain?" And that drives me bonkers. But can you kind of talk about? I think I read years ago that our water system is one of the largest users of energy in our state, right up there with our resorts. But can you kind of talk about how important it is to conserve in terms of reducing emissions, and also just reducing energy use, because that goes into the overall cost of our system, which comes out in our bills, correct?
Right. Absolutely. So when we talk about resources, indoor use doesn't have an impact on our resources, right? In terms of consumptive demands versus non-consumptive demands. And that's mostly what we focus on, but you're absolutely right. Every gallon of water has an energy footprint and a carbon footprint associated with that, because we have to lift that water or push it from Lake Mead, which today is at about an elevation of 1070, up over the river mountains and into the
And it keeps
valley.
getting
right?
the uphill keeps getting more uphill every year.
Right,
You know,
right.
Yeah.
And then we have to lift it up through the valley to the west side and northwest sides of the valley, right? And the treatment process is also energy intensive. So so there is absolutely a energy that's embedded in every gallon of water, and our conservation initiatives help us to reduce that that carbon footprint and that energy demand. I think we are the largest single power energy user in at least Southern Nevada, and so being thoughtful about how you use a limited resource like water, even indoors, is I think is important when you think about sustainability and carbon footprint and energy use. It's important. It's also, I think, important to understand that when we get into the summertime and we have when there's the really hot days and NV Energy sends out notifications to please set your air conditioning temperature a little higher because of limitations they have on energy production. We do the same thing. So we pump more water at night and less water during the daytime to help reduce the energy load during the middle of the day. And how people use water through the day has an impact, right, on how that affects the overall kind of regional ability to meet power demands. We pump up to, just so everybody knows, we pump up to we deliver to the purveyor members, and then they pump up to reservoirs and then primarily feed by gravity from the reservoirs down to the home. So there's ability to store some water through the day and then pump water back up to those reservoirs at night. And we try to do that particularly during the summertime.
Great, thanks.
And Rick, if I
ahead.
could just say a couple more things. I
Mhm.
misspoke on the leak detection voucher. That voucher is available across the purveyor members. Just each purveyor member has a different method or ability to
Okay, yeah.
detect leaks, right? So,
Okay.
and we also have incentives for the devices that Eric was talking about, the flow detection equipment, on our website also. So.
Great. No, thanks. That's really helpful. Hey, do you want to, I could ask 5 more questions, but I see we've got 43 responses on the chat. So, could you maybe, start
So
that kind of Q&A there?
absolutely. So if anybody has additional questions, please put them in the chat or Q&A now. But while we're waiting for more questions, we had one from Carol. Can you explain the choice in design and build between each unit versus having the property owner paying for water? Does somebody want to take that one?
Sorry, would you repeat the question again?
Yeah, can you repeat
sorry.
that? I didn't catch either.
Can you explain the choice in design and build between each unit? I think she means deciding to pay versus property owner paying, or so the property owner
metering,
paying versus
right?
the
Yes.
tenant paying. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I could take first. Like I think water is mostly paid by the property owner. In multifamily, other utilities like gas and electric could be paid by the tenants. However, as an affordable housing developers, when we are underwriting the projects, it's more to do with financing and getting be more competitive in presenting our project to jurisdictions and others to really buy into that what we are going to be developing. And it's a really good incentive for residents to have a utility allowance or owner paid utilities. Most of the seniors, I believe, the one that I'm actually about to break ground on, Pura Vida, is all 100% paid owner paid utilities. Lake Mead West that I finished we have a utility allowance, and the others in the past that I've worked on, we always had a utility allowance. So it's a choice. It's a choice that we have to make, I believe, that you cannot walk away from it because you get incentivized to pay.
Thank you. And then Kevin asks, some of the local jurisdictions are offering fee discount incentives for qualified affordable housing projects. Would that be a possibility for fees from Regional Housing Authority or Las Vegas Valley Water District? I think you talked a little bit about the rebate program, Zane, but maybe something is there anything additional in terms of development?
No, our rebates are really about existing construction, right? Existing facilities and helping to convert them to more water efficient circumstances.
Makes sense. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions coming in.
Hey Zane, do you think the Water Authority would consider like a performance-based incentive at some point, similar to what NB Energy is doing, where you do some energy modeling up front and then kind of show that, hey, we're gonna be installing this, energy efficient equipment, just so um to kind of what I'm thinking is to kind of encourage people to just go a little bit above code. And I mean, I know that's a non-consumptive sort of use there, but I think it could also apply to landscape if they're doing some of the smart things that Eric's talking about.
So it's an area, I think, of active research with the hotels right now,
Okay.
and in terms of operating their cooling systems, because I think there's gains to be made there in terms of more efficient operations. We're looking at potentially standing up a new incentive program for irrigation, to improve irrigation systems that are old and dysfunctional, right? To incentivize the replacement of inefficient irrigation systems, and to convert from some of these old spray systems that spray shrubs and trees to drip irrigation. So we're looking at new programs, and so there might be a need to do that. I think the future of conservation, once we get through 2026 and the conversion of non-functional turf and pretty much get all of the low-hanging fruit in terms of turf conversions, the focus is going to be on efficiency, right? And really helping the community to be more efficient through flow metering and sub-metering and incentives to be more efficient. But I think that's
like really
probably
dialing it
right,
in,
right. But
after we get to that point. Yeah.
right.
Okay. And I also wanted to kind of mention that something that we're just looking at right now, that I know the Water District and NV Energy are really interested in as well, is the Inflation Reduction Act, as you know, is just in the process of getting really rolled out and implemented. And I recently attended an informational kind of a session on that program and how it works and how it can be applied to normally a tax incentive for energy or renewable energy and so forth. That's always that doesn't go to governments or nonprofits. However, I thought it was fascinating that the Inflation Reduction Act was specifically targeted to include or updated to include to allow nonprofits to get I forget what it's called, but basically an upfront incentive to offset the cost of these technologies, low energy technologies. So and that also applies to local governments. So that's very unique, and I think it really opens up a lot of opportunities for the medium to large size projects that would normally need a large enough mechanical system like a central plant to be able to start incorporating these really ultra high efficiency non-evaporative technologies like geothermal, ground source geothermal, and also thermal storage systems, like literally creating ice at night and using that cooling during the day, and taking advantage of demand costing with energy. So anyway, I just kind of want to mention that because I know you guys were in the same presentation and we're pretty impressed. And so what we're kind of hatching right now through AIA is maybe a 3 or 4 part series where we kind of introduce these technologies and talk about the benefits of net zero and how this funding source could really reduce the upfront cost for those systems, by up to like 50%. So it really puts them on par with regular code minimum mechanical systems. So I think it's a great kind of a easy step for these, for these developers that are normally used to using large, chillers and water source chillers and everything, and evaporative coolers for warehouses, to say, hey, we can really take advantage of this and move towards more net zero. So anyway, I was just like super excited about that. So we'll make sure to get those details out to this group as that series gets settled. Any more questions, Joanna?
There are a couple more questions in the chat. Maybe we could do a quick lightning round before we wrap up. Hopefully these are easy answers.
All right.
Do some of these design decisions, landscaping, for example, lower property insurance costs because flood or wildfire risk is reduced? Property insurance question.
Anything that is not a hazard is good, but I believe it's not a huge impact in underwriters. It's more to do with the systems that are in place for security and safety and evacuation and other processes. That decides that drives the decision of the insurance underwriter.
Thank you.
And I know zero about insurance. However, our projects in California, one of the first things we have to do is to look at what wildfire zone they're in, and it is incredible how many cities are squarely in the middle of a wildfire zone. So that affects how the building's designed, how how the roof is designed, and some of them that are in kind of kind of mountainous areas, they literally need fire breaks and so forth. So that was really a real eye opener to me about that's what climate is doing. It's moving these wildfire interface zones right into cities. It's not just people that live on the edge of the forest like we kind of think.
Yeah. So Tim asked 3 questions, but I think we'll only have time for one. In the Las Vegas area, what attention is being paid to using passive house design principles that typically result in 80 to 90% savings in energy use and associated costs? Or maybe and the second one, maybe you can answer them both at once. Are Las Vegas architects and builders taking advantage of the fact that panelized design and construction can reduce construction time up to 55% and labor costs up to 41%?
Well, sadly, I can say that that's not at all common in Las Vegas yet. However, I've been a huge fan of panelized wall systems and SIPS walls and so forth, and they're very commonly used in passive house certified projects. However, the technologies that I mentioned that are going to become much more available, much more prevalent as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act incentives, and as a result of the Water District, advocacy to outlawing water use chillers, is that those systems are going to allow buildings to get closer to net zero energy in a more affordable way. So the whole idea behind a passive house is that you sort of like design the building almost like a refrigerator. It's completely insulated, really high performance windows, and then you bring in fresh air. But the idea is that there's very little thermal change in that envelope. So then your energy inputs can be really, really tiny. So that's a concept that the building industry is moving towards, and it's really the only way we're going to have any chance to get to net zero, by 2040, before things really start hitting the fan, is really looking at buildings as a system that we need to absolutely minimize the loads and minimizing the water usage as well, because all those resources are getting more and more scarce, and they're going to get more and more expensive as well to keep the infrastructure going to supply those.
Oh, interesting. All right. Well, I think we can wrap up. We're about 4 minutes from one. There are definitely some more questions, so maybe we can have a second conversation at a future time about this topic. I think this will continue to be a hot topic for folks in the housing field. But thank you so much to all of our speakers. Thank you, Rick and Zane and Hassan and Eric, for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you all next month for a surprise topic that I can't announce yet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Hey,
guys.
Eric.
Have a great
Thanks,
time.
Hey, Eric, would you mind sticking that that leak technology you mentioned in the chat or email it to me?
Yeah,
Even better.
absolutely. Yes, I will.
All right.
And we'll
Thanks again,
definitely send
everybody.
out the
Appreciate it.
resources collected and the slides and reporting as usual. So you'll see that coming in a few days. You guys have a great afternoon.